let's talk about Mr. Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, what can you say about Stevie Ray Vaughan that hasn't been said? So I could probably do a whole course just on Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's a huge influence on me and many others, of course. One thing that I want to kind of focus on, and I don't think enough people focus on, is his rhythm playing. In the intro there, I did a little kind of common figure that guys like Stevie did, which is just kind of starting on the 5 chord, playing that kind of little single note rhythm, and going down to the 4 chord, and just doing the turnaround of a 12-bar blues. So that looks something like this. I'm starting on B. I'm thinking about this B chord right here. And simply starting with the low B note and then jumping up to the octave. Okay, and it's a shuffle feel, so you want to kind of double up on those notes in a shuffle feel. And a shuffle is, of course, based off of triplets. So a triplet feel would be something like this. So we're just omitting the middle note, so we get something like this. Now, in order to make this kind of feel greasy and cool and hip and vibey, what you want to do is kind of get your right hand playing that rhythm almost like a strum. And this is where the tricky part comes in, because you're kind of using a right hand strum, but you're actually playing single notes. So what you have to do is do some creative muting here, and that's kind of why my fingers, you see, I have them kind of laying across the strings here. So I'm actually kind of pushing the notes underneath my fingers. And then the other fingers are muting the strings, and this gives you some right hand freedom. All right, so that figure starts on B, and then down to A. And this is a really clever little turnaround lick that Stevie Ray Vaughan used all the time. So you're starting here, you're actually on the minor third of the E, which is G, and you're just doing this little half step walk up. And there's a little B7 chord there that you could kind of resolve it to. So all together sounds something like this. So that was a little intro I played. Now, that's not directly in that song that I was playing, but I just wanted to throw it in there as an example of something or a way that Stevie might approach that rhythm style of playing. Now, the thing about a lot of these guys, including Stevie, is they played in 3-piece bands or a very stripped down band, so they had a lot of responsibility. They had to sing, and they also had to play rhythm guitar. And this is why you want to kind of get that nice shuffle feel with your right hand, so you can kind of almost just go on automatic pilot. That's what these guys did, and that way it allowed them to kind of focus on their vocals. So it's just something to think about. If you don't sing, you kind of have to keep that in mind, as that's how these guys approached a lot of their rhythm guitar playing. It was around their actual vocal singing. So that's why a lot of these strategies were employed by these guys. Now this particular song, which is based off of Pride and Joy, which is probably Stevie's most popular song, I would suppose, he keeps that right hand kind of chugging going on, that shuffle feel with his right hand. And when he starts singing, he actually doesn't actually play the riff. If you listen real closely, he's just kind of scratching the strings to kind of keep a rhythm going. But before he starts singing, he just plays kind of a basic blues figure here. It's almost like a walking bass line. And what's important there is you have to have that right hand going. And to be honest with you, I don't mind if it's just a little bit of, I don't want to say slop, because Stevie was certainly not a sloppy player, but getting some of those other strings in there kind of makes the sound a little bit bigger. So if you do it real tight like this, that's cool, but it doesn't have the same vibe or the same feel as. It just sounds so much bigger when you kind of add that right hand strum in there. So that was something that Stevie did a lot of. In some of Stevie's lead playing, he does a lot of rhythmic stuff too. He does a lot of these kind of double stops that he moves around. So against an E7 chord, you can see something like this. This shape here, which is kind of coming from an E7 chord right here. And sometimes he would just slide that up. He would do those kind of rhythmic double stops, and again, kind of keeping that loose feel so it had that groove and that kind of mojo to it. Okay, so those kind of double stops, those third intervals moving up the guitar and a rhythmic feel, that's very synonymous with Stevie's style. Also, he'd like to do that on the high E string. So if you're looking at these two strings here, the B and the high E, that's another really familiar shape that Stevie used to use. And what he would do right here, you kind of get a little bit of bend going on that. And it adds a little bit of vibe to it. So you got these double stops. And then these double stops on the top two strings. And all the while your right hand is kind of retaining that shuffle type feel to keep that groove going. All right, I'm going to jam a little bit more to the track and go ahead and inject some of these Stevie Ray Vaughan rhythm type approaches into my playing. Let's go. All right, so that's a little insight into a more rhythmic approach to Stevie's playing. I know there's always a lot of talk about his lead playing, rightfully so, it's amazing. But I think people disregard his rhythm playing a little bit, which I think is equally as amazing. Especially the fact that he was singing over the top of that too at the same time. It's really awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and head over to our practice scene and see if we can employ some of these Stevie Ray Vaughan rhythm techniques. Let's go. All right, welcome back to our practice session. In this session, what we're going to do is we're going to trade some solos, and we're going to do it within the structure of the backing tracks.